And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media. Taylor Phillips and Ed Smith. Frank Ragnow is out due to a undisclosed family personal emergency. But we're going to start with our opening statement. The Red Wings season is finally over, but we still have to wait until we hear about their de facto AHL head coach, Jeff Blashill. Ed, what is your opening statement?
My opening statement is, as a contrast, converse to that effect, the Pistons have already decided that not only does Dwayne Casey deserve another year, he's going to get more than that with the recent announcement that he has just signed an extension.
Yeah, we'll get into that plus more. But before we get started, we want to remind everyone to download the sports mobile app, VigIt, where great fans cover. Enter the referral code STABLES for Stables Media when you sign up. Capital S, the rest are lowercase with the letter B as in billionaire. Available on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Download the VigIt app and sign up with the referral code STABLES with a capital S and the rest being lowercase with the letter B as in billionaire for 1,000 free Vig coins. VigIt is where great fans cover. Our top story from ESPN's Dan Murphy, Michigan missed signs of abusive doctor, which is Dr. Robert Anderson. So that is an update right there. So let's get to it. Employees in the athletic department and health service department at the University of Michigan missed warning signs and failed to stop the serial sexual misconduct of former school doctor Robert Anderson, according to a report from the WilmerHale law firm released Tuesday afternoon. The university hired WilmerHale in March 2020 to investigate allegations of sexual misconduct against Anderson, as well as the response that patients received from other employees when they made complaints about Anderson. Investigators interviewed more than 300 former patients and more than 200 university employees during a 14-month investigation before publishing a 240-page report Tuesday. Keep in mind, Anderson, for those of you that are listening right now, Anderson worked at the University of Michigan from 1966 to 2003. During the majority of his time at the school, he worked closely with the athletic department, treating athletes' injuries and conducting annual physicals. Hundreds of former patients, many of them former Wolverine athletes, now say that Anderson sexually abused and harassed them in a variety of ways during the treatment of routine medical issues. In interviews and court documents, Anderson's former patients say the doctor assaulted them, fondled them, and made an array of inappropriate sexual comments, among many other examples of misconduct. Anderson died in 2008 before the claims of abuse were widely publicized. They found that Anderson engaged in sexual misconduct on countless occasions, and that authority figures heard specific accusations as well as rumors about Anderson's misconduct, but failed to stop him from abusing others. University President Mark Schlissel said in a statement Tuesday afternoon, quote, "We will thoughtfully and diligently review and assess the report's findings, conclusions, and recommendations, and we will work to regain the trust of survivors and to assure that we foster a safe environment for our students, our employees, and our community," unquote. In an effort to provide a layer of independence to the investigation, university leaders were not allowed to review or read WilmerHale's findings prior to the release of the report Tuesday. The WilmerHale report found 8 instances when patients shared concerns about Anderson in some form dating back to the 1960s. well, the late 1960s, that is. They found 8 additional instances when athletes say they voiced concerns about Anderson with athletic department personnel. The investigators also found out that many other employees were aware of vague rumors of Anderson's conduct. The report says, quote, "We also learned of more than a dozen additional instances in which athletic department personnel heard jokes or rumors about Dr. Anderson's examinations, some of which highlighted Dr. Anderson's propensity for performing sensitive examinations for no apparent medically appropriate reason, yet no one in the athletic department appears to have recognized what they heard as indicative of abuse or initiated any inquiries into Dr. Anderson's conduct," unquote. Thomas Easthope, a former vice president of student services, failed to stop Anderson after hearing explicit complaints about the doctor, quote, "fooling around with boys" unquote, in 1978 or 1979. Easthope told the police in recent years that he fired Anderson after receiving complaints, but Wilmer Hale's review found that Easthope signed documents in 1980 that approve a pay increase for Anderson. Easthope received another complaint about Anderson in late 1980, according to investigators. Anderson was transferred from his role with University Health Service in July 1981 into a role with the athletic department, where he continued to see patients for another 2 decades. Now, let's see here. Complaints about Anderson resurfaced in the summer of 2018 when former wrestler Tad DeLuca wrote a letter about his experience with Anderson to current Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel. DeLuca first raised concerns about Anderson's conduct in 1975 as part of a list of problems he included in a letter to wrestling coach Bill Johansson, and athletic director Don Canham. He said he was prompted to try to report Anderson again after listening to reports about former Michigan State doctor Larry Nassar's conviction on criminal sexual misconduct charges. DeLuca's 2018 letter eventually prompted a police investigation, which raised more questions about missed opportunities to stop Anderson's abuse. He's one of a handful of former Anderson patients who say they attempted to warn university and athletic department officials about the doctor decades ago. The list of university employees who allegedly were told about Anderson also includes current head athletic trainer Paul Schmidt, 2 former track coaches, a university psychologist, and revered former football coach Bo Schembechler. In addition to a former student worker saying he raised concerns to Schembechler in the 1980s, investigators were told by 3 former members of the football team that they told the coach that they had a problem with Anderson's treatment. Canham and Schembechler both died years before those reports were made public. Johansson and the track coaches denied hearing any athletes complain about Anderson. Schmidt told police in December 2018 that he never saw Anderson do anything inappropriate. He did not respond to multiple attempts to reach him after former players accused him of laughing about Anderson's reputation for performing frequent rectal exams and hernia checks. All athletic department employees interviewed by the Wilmer Hale investigators denied receiving any reports or complaints about Anderson. More than a half dozen plaintiffs' law firms have filed civil lawsuits against the university and its leadership on behalf of nearly 900 clients who say they were abused by Anderson. The university said last April that it hoped to develop a process to address claims about Anderson's abuse outside of court in the interest of providing more certain, faster relief to survivors. The university has not yet released any details about its proposed process. Attempts to settle the lawsuits through mediation began last October, but so far those efforts have been fruitless. Other cases in recent years involving university employee doctors who sexually abused their patients have been settled for large sums of money. Michigan State paid $500 million to settle hundreds of cases related to Nassar's abuse. Southern California paid more than $1 billion total to settle claims related to former university gynecologist George Tyndall. So that's twice the amount that Michigan State paid for the Nassar stuff scandal. So that's the end of that article. So Ed, just some people just failed to at that time in 2018 just failed to report it.
Well, not just 2018 in terms of going by the details of this account, this whole report. Many people failed over a span of decades to report this, either report this or confront Anderson about this, or take some type of action, some sort of action as to where that A, he could have been removed from his position, B, barred from the school, from the university, and of course the obvious one, C, brought up about this in court and faced his due punishment. But it is a disappointment to know that still, when you talk about the names that are mentioned, especially the two big ones that come to mind, Canham and of course Bo Schembechler, that knowing full well that these were two men in a position, supreme position of power, especially Schembechler. And if you want to talk about the comparisons, I think they're just in this instance, in terms of going back to Penn State, when people were so aghast and so appalled that Joe Paterno, frankly, knowing what he knew, didn't do anything to prevent Jerry Sandusky from doing what he did, or kept him or brought him to justice much more sooner than he eventually did. So there's a similar element of that that can easily be applied here, and for a rightful reason. As much as Bo Schembechler is revered, is beloved, and is respected, not just within the university, but across the whole spectrum of college sports, college football at least. Again, the word disappointment often comes up when you hear about the fact that he could have done something. Because again, when you spend as much time as you have, the way that Schembechler did, whether he was a coach, athletic director, or as part of the other excursions that he had from the time that he retired until literally the day he died, there's no way that he didn't know, or at least had heard about what Dr. Anderson was doing. When you, especially when you take into consideration the multiple reports that have been apparently collaborated, of the fact that Schembechler was brought up about this many times, and apparently either didn't know, or rather denied it, or didn't want to know, didn't do enough. Either way, he failed in his role. And he was not the only one, mind you. He was not the only one that failed in their role. Many athletic directors failed in their role. School presidents failed in their role as well. They deserve some culpability and accountability and criticism for this as well. And you can't sugarcoat this. Like, it is what it is. It paints I don't know if you want to say it taints his whole entire legacy, but it does leave several bad marks on it because it's just, frankly, a simple case of common sense and decency will make led you to believe, especially knowing of the fact that, again, one big reason why people were so critical of Paterno and Penn State is because they knew full and good well that the power, the pure power that Paterno had at that school, especially the fact that this was concerning one of his own coaches on his own staff, someone that he knew for multiple years, someone who had been around his own children. You would think that if Paterno uh, had done the right thing and stepped up, um, again, knowing what he know, he would have that would have been that whole process would have been much quicker than we eventually found out. And I think the same thing has to apply here for Schembechler, which is why you may hear criticisms of Schembechler now, is because he was in a similar position to where he could have done the same thing. He could have said, or at least brought it up, make a mention to it. Even if you don't want to go the follow a police report, or just, hey, let it be known. Say, hey, I think this is, people are telling me, even if he didn't believe this fully, think about what it represents, knowing the power that Schembechler had. If he could have brought this issue up, this would have stopped a long time ago, and it would not have kept going for as long as it did. So upon hearing all that combined, I think, again, the line at the very end of the story sums it up perfectly. A few are angry. This is a quote from attorney Michael Wright, who represents a big portion of the former patients and survivors of Anderson's treatment. He said, quote, "A few people are angry. A few are disappointed. The university had the opportunity to prevent Dr. Anderson from molesting a lot of athletes, and they did not. And frankly, that says it all." So Michigan, while I appreciate what the current administration is trying to do right now as a sort of a mea culpa, this still does not excuse for the fact that they failed in their responsibility, and they deserved any abject criticism, punishment, litigation, settlement, whatever the case may be. They deserve what's coming their way. And I think if Michigan State had to pay up the way they did, and if USC had to pay up the way they did, you better believe Michigan's going to have to ante up in terms of settlements and reconciliation. So it's a sad case, it's a disappointing case, but it just serves as a reminder of why, you can't go too far, so to speak, in terms of trying to idealize or put a preference or priority of college sports or athletics in general over value of actual people and their lives, especially when it comes to situations like this, to where the after effects are so much damaging, not just to emotional health, mental health, spiritual well-being, and of course the physical process of it as well. That is a stain that can last, frankly, for decades, for the rest of someone's life, if possible, if they're that damaged as a result. So knowing the amount of people whose lives were affected forever because of this, it's a disappointment. And but it's a needed action of what needs to be done, because taking into account everything that we've seen, Michigan State, Baylor, Penn State, USC, now this, and they're not the only ones. I'm sure there's far more out there than we could ever know. But the more accountability is shown, the more culpability is taken, and the more of this comes out, the precedent and rules can now be properly set to where if this does try to happen again, they will catch it quicker and they'll eradicate it right then and there, instead of letting it fester and fester. Because
Yeah.
that's the problem that they all learn. And
You still have to hope they do
this
it.
can't happen. Exactly. This can't happen again, and people have got to be held accountable to it. Period.
Yeah, you still have to hope they catch them on time. They have to hold themselves accountable for whether they're catching it or not catching it at all. I mean, everyone
And
that's
you got to,
involved in the scandal has to be held accountable
yeah,
immediately. Period.
absolutely. Like, now, I don't know what the immediate reaction. I think you got to let that temper down. I have people, I guess, what if you want to have, now you can have your own opinion about what they should do in terms of, should they take Bo Schembechler's name off of the hall, or do this or that. Like, I don't know. That's not up to me to decide. That's up for the university and the schools to decide. I think, for example, this could be, again, apples and oranges, but there is a difference between Anderson being a doctor versus compared to Jerry Sandusky being a actual coach on Joe Paterno's coaching staff. And I hate that I sound like that I'm even trying to compare it at that perspective, but there is a level to it. But still, at the end of the day, accountability needs to be held for all these people involved.
Exactly. So more may be yet to come. We'll keep our eyes on this thing. Speaking of Michigan, the Wolverines, their football team will lose their defensive coordinator, Maurice Linguist, who was hired as head coach of the University at Buffalo Bulls. So Jim Harbaugh will have a spot to fill in for Maurice Linguist.
Actually, I believe he has already filled in that spot because a coach on the staff at the University of Kentucky, Steve Clinkscale, he has been hired essentially to be the replacement for Linguist. He will be in charge of the defensive passing game coordination, and he'll be the defensive backs coach. Frankly, about in regards to Clinkscale, he is someone, if you were to believe certain reports, Jim Harbaugh has been eyeing to get for years now, not just this past off season. So, and also when you consider the fact that he is a local man, he has connections in both Michigan and Ohio, and he has a knack of developing talent in the secondary where they become quality starting caliber quarterbacks in the NFL. Frankly, that's something that you want to hear if you're a Michigan fan, because after after that 2018 season, but that peak period of 2016 to 2018, where not just the defense as a whole were incredible, but the secondary itself was quite outstanding in their production. Once all those guys left and went to the NFL, the production and value immediately fell off a cliff. And you would hope with this hire of Clinkscale that it can help bring that back up. I don't know, we'll be back to that level of 2016 to 2018, but it'll certainly be way better than the crap show that we've seen happen to the secondary and in general the defense since that time period.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Transitioning to pro football, and this is really bad news here. Offensive tackle Penei Sewell tested positive for the coronavirus. They picked him at 7th overall just this year, about a couple weeks ago. And then now he tested positive for the coronavirus. So he'll miss the rookie mini camp, unfortunately. I don't know how he caught it. Did he break the protocol or just catch it for no reason?
Well, again, that's still developing, so we don't know for certain how it happened, how he got it, how he contacted it. Could have been someone he know or someone he knew. That is always a possibility with contact tracing and how quickly it spreads from one person to another, and they don't even know it. You can have all the proper distancing and guidelines that you're following. If you still get in contact with that one person and let's say both parties don't even know until after the test result, that still can happen. It's unfortunate though for his sake. I at least hope for his sake long term that whatever effects that he may suffer, it's not as damaging, because what I've seen reports of how athletes or people in general, especially athletes, that catch it and recover from it, it takes a long period of time, like multiple months. We're talking like 8 months or so of certain functions to even get on the up and up in terms of recovery back to pre-COVID levels, especially when it concerns the lungs. Now, for Sewell's case, I would hope he's asymptomatic. If not, again, I just wish him the best of recovery and hope that this does not provide any damaging long-term effect on him, on his body, because if it were, it will be something that could potentially put his young career already at risk, and that's something you don't want to have happen to him. So for his sake, I hope he gets better. And by the way, this is another PSA, in my view, without sounding all too preachy or political. I'll say this and I'll get off my soapbox. This is another example of why people need to get the vaccination as soon as humanly possible. You hear that, Taylor Decker? Get the shot.
Yeah, don't be a coward. Just get the shot. Get your 2 shots. Not just 1, but 2. So, with that out of the way, the Lions have signed center Frank Ragnow to a 4-year, $54 million contract extension. They picked up his 5th-year option, and then they signed him to a 4-year, $54 million contract extension. So Frank Ragnow is here to stay in Detroit with the Lions. And then running back Kerryon Johnson was claimed off waivers by the Philadelphia Eagles. The Lions waived him about a week ago, and now he's a Philadelphia Eagle. So,
well, best wishes to Kerryon. I hope he has as productive a career as possible with Philly. As regards to Frank Ragnow, doesn't happy for him. Obviously, big man got a big payday, but also it establishes the mentality and the mindset of how the moving forward they want their front lines to be one of, if not the strongest points of the entire team, not just on the offense, but on the defensive side of the ball too. So when you see that they're giving Ragnow his money now, to see they just signed Decker to an extension last year, and they just drafted Sewell this year. You can clearly see, but with the theme, the foundation that they're trying to build. So I got no problems with it whatsoever, as long as they continue to produce at the level that they're producing now. Decker had his best year yet last year, as did Ragnow. Wouldn't surprise me in the next couple of years if you see one, if not both of those guys, as a Pro Bowl selection. That's how good they can be. So props to him. Glad he got his bag.
Yep. Man, Frank Ragnow's a lucky guy, but he's got to earn it on the field. And finally, the rest of the teams in our tank watch. The Red Wings, first off, their final tank watch, 6th worst in the NHL, 19, 27, and 10 with 48 points. Still waiting on whether or not the Red Wings will fire or keep Jeff Blashill somehow. They got to fire him, period. Why should we wait any longer?
First and foremost, we want to talk about how their season ended. I think, in terms of winning 2 of your last 4 games, quite unnecessary, especially that 1-0 game against the Lightning. And I don't know something about what happened. But with Columbus, with that 5-2 win, I don't know if they were just hoping to get a better chance at a top pick too.
Keep in mind, John Tortorella resigned as head coach of the Blue Jackets right after the Red Wings and Blue Jackets split their doubleheader. The Blue Jackets won the second game of the doubleheader to wrap up their season 5-4 in overtime.
But still, even with that said, I wouldn't want Tortorella here. His personality, his shtick, whatever you want to call it, it will wear on you and it will overstay its welcome quicker than you expect.
Right. I wouldn't want Tortorella.
Think of what Babcock has been or was when he was in Toronto. That would be the same thing here.
Right. Babcock already wanted no part of the Red Wings after 2015.
Right.
Anyway.
And that was after when his contract was expired. He wasn't fired. His contract was expired.
Yes.
And both sides decided to part ways. Now, again, we're looking at a position here where,
like I said, Babcock wanted no part of this. He decided to leave and sign sign an 8-year $50 million contract with the Leafs in Toronto, and then
he got canned.
He was fired. Yeah.
Yeah. But we digress. Going back in terms of getting back on topic, the Blashill. If you want to argue a reason for him staying, it would be because first and foremost, the roster that he was given when he started, completely different then as it was now, obviously, but still they're still shedding off the last few bad coattails of that tenure, which was Ken Holland. You saw the deals that Holland made, the players that he signed, the players that he drafted that either failed to develop or weren't the right fit, or whatever the case may be. They just weren't the right cogs for what Blashill might have wanted for his own personal sake. Now, from what we have heard, from what I've seen, I haven't heard any inclination that Steve Eisman may have had any problems whatsoever with Blashill. So that could be an element that works in his favor. Eisman also may feel, besides personal preference, he may also feel that, listen, this is a roster that's still being tinkered with, still being built, not just in terms of shredding down what happened with the last tenure, but also building up of what this tenure wants to do. So he may feel that Blashill deserves as much time as possible, as much patience as possible to develop what Eisman's trying to do with this team. If it means another year, or if need be 2 years as a result, that's a chance that it could happen. Now, again, we don't know what's going to happen yet. I think if you can argue either side has a case to where, hey, if something wasn't announced by now, what do you think is going to happen? Either side has a case. I think it's a 50-50 type of equation that we're dealing with, as to whether or not Blashill is back next year or not. Eisman, it's all up to Eisman what he wants to do. If he thinks that Blashill deserves a little bit more patience, a little bit more time, then he'll do that. If he also thinks that he wants the guy that he wants to run this team, he'll make that decision too. But I think this is a wait and see process that we're gonna have to wade through. And if and when the decision is made between now and next week, I'm sure Eisman will give his reasoning, and then we can discuss it from there.
Yeah, but I doubt.
But again, it's you gotta also point out that Blashill himself is not the sole problem. When you have for example, a power play unit that ranks second to last in the entire NHL, that's not all on the head coach. That's got to go on some element to the coaching staff.
Yes.
Obviously, it's on some of the talent, but also the coaching staff. How in the world can you be this bad and this inept?
Including Bilesma.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, in my opinion, Eisman's going to have some choices and decisions to make, not just from the head coach spot, but all the way on down for the rest of the coaching staff. So I would keep an eye on that to see what he would do in that regard, because between power play being ineffective, not getting enough support or offensive support for your goaltenders for most of the season, and also for the fact that they were dealing with a myriad of health problems, whether it be injuries to key guys, Dylan Larkin being a chief example, or they, like everyone else, having to deal with whatever impact or many outbreaks in regards to COVID on their own team. All that does play a factor in how a season may go. Now, this team was still going to be bad no matter what this year, but those other elements did not help. But you may feel or feel at least some level of optimism that, hey, we got some young talent on here that has potential to develop. We have draft picks that are coming in our way. We've made deals that's given us the assets that we need to help build the type of team that's going to contend in the future. So there's all that being weighed upon by Eisman, and you can argue either way, either side, whether or not that's a positive or a negative in regards to keeping Blashill or just letting them walk.
Yeah, they better let him walk anyway. But they better let the entire coaching staff walk. But it starts at the top with Blashill or Trashel, whatever. But not Trashel, but yeah, Blashill again, just a more AHL caliber head coach. He's got to go back to Grand Rapids. But for the rest of the coaching staff, Dan Bilesma, he's over the hill. He needs to retire. Bilesma grew stale with the Penguins after they won their 09 Cup. Pistons, their tank watch, second worst in the NBA, 20-50. In front of the Houston Rockets, who are worst at 16-53 going into tonight. And the Pistons have signed head coach Dwayne Casey to a one-year extension through the 23-24 season. He has 2 years left on his 5-year contract. 5 years. So it's been probably extended to 6 years. No details on how much money Dwayne Casey is going to get paid in the 23-24 season, but even if it was 1 year, I just don't think it was necessary. The Pistons have been getting routed in most of the losses as of late, and Tom Gores and Troy Weaver signed Dwayne Casey to a 1 year extension in addition to the remaining 2 years of his 5 year contract. I mean, it's short. It's just 1 year short, but still, Ed, not necessary.
Well, actually, Taylor, I think we're gonna have a different opinion with you on this one. You guys take into consideration of that. As much as I like and appreciate Stan Van Gundy as a person and even as a coach, he was terrible as a general manager. Completely and utterly terrible with the deals and contracts that he signed and the players that he brought to this team. It put Casey in a bad spot to begin with. Ed Stefanski knew that. He knew this was going to be a process. It was going to take time. He knew that once he brought him in to begin with. And you consider the fact that Troy Weaver has made positive, almost glowing comments and remarks regarding Casey in the past week or so. It doesn't surprise me to hear the news of this extension being made. I think with, again, some of the players that you do have now, like the previous era is completely gone. Andre Drummond, gone. Blake Griffin, gone. Reggie Jackson, gone. Luke Kennard, gone. All those elements and guys are gone. We're now filling and replacing them with younger talent that fits the mold of what Ed Stefanski, Troy Weaver, and maybe to an extent Tom Gores wants. But it's all compatible and it works with what Coach Casey's trying to build. And you can also tell that the players, they like their coach. They like this guy. They like coaching. They like him coaching them. They like playing for him. They haven't quit on him. They know things are not as good as what they want to be right now, but they just, in terms of their effort, the effort has not faded or eroded. You've seen it in most of their games this year. They've been competitive as possible while still losing as well. For example, like last week or so when they beat the Grizzlies, I think some people got a little bit irritated at that because it was messing up with their tank chances. Well, don't worry, folks. You're happy. You were satisfied in that end because they've now lost 3 straight. And like you said, Taylor, they're second worst record in the entire league, just behind Houston. So if that trend were to continue, I think the chances would be very high of the Pistons not just getting a top 5 pick, they're getting a top 3 pick as far as I'm concerned. But if I would probably make this as a prediction right as it stands as of today, which could easily, mind you, this could all change in an instant. But if you were to tell me how do you think the top 3 of the lottery would go, I would say Houston would get number 1 because multitude of factors. They lost. It's like what happened with Cleveland when they lost LeBron. They were objectively terrible, and maybe the league felt sorry for them. And then, oh, hey, what do you know? You got the number 1 pick the following season. I could easily see that happening with Houston, especially with the fact that Cade Cunningham, he plays at Oklahoma State, but he's also a Texas boy. So that could be an easy fill-in for Houston number 1. But even still, let's say Cade Cunningham is off the board. There's still some good talent, some good guys available at the top of this class. Jalen Suggs is 1. Evan Mobley is another. Especially Jalen Green, who I feel, and I think some other people online as well feel, would be a great complement, a great duo pair with him and Killian Hayes in the backcourt. And I think if you notice, though, I think they're not too far out because when you think about in the past great years of Pistons success, a backcourt was always there, whether it was the bad boys with Isaiah and Joe Dumars or with the Go in the Work crew with Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton.
Tayshaun Prince, Ben Wallace, and Rasheed Wallace.
Well, backcourt. I'm mainly concerning your guards. Yeah, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, but those guys too. But primarily your guards. And if Killian Hayes were to have a partner or a go-to shooter, go-to scorer, offensive weapon in Jalen Green that he can get involved and facilitate to, that would be a benefit for his success and his development, his future, as well as the team's, obviously. So there is plenty of guys available that you can still take, even if you don't get the number one pick. And frankly, if you, let's say you do bad enough between now and 2023, you could see yourself in position to where you're getting another guy of that caliber, if not better. Fingers crossed, Imani Bates, because in my view, knowing that Imani Bates just decommitted from MSU, and it said that he has his options available, including both college and pro, I'm of the belief that he's probably going to finish out his year in Ipsy. I don't think he's going to go overseas. I think he's going to go straight to the G League. He'll play some time there, build up his resume, build up his talent, get paid also. And he's likely, either way, going to be the de facto number one pick for the 2023 draft. So knowing that, if you're the Pistons, I think you got to do whatever you can, even if it means going through 2 more seasons of this. You got to put yourself in a position to where you have the talent around you and the pieces you need around you to make this a much sturdier ship. And I think if you do that with, say, like you've been doing it so far with Killian Hayes, and you do it with Sadiq Bey, and let's say you get a Jalen Green, or Jalen Green, or hey, ding, 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 Cade Cunningham, that could be a possibility. Or again, another backup plan, wait till 2023 and you have Imani Bates. I think those scenarios are obviously in play. I think that played into the decision of Troy Weaver to make, or and or Ed Stefanski and or Tom Gores to make the move, make the announcement. Hey, we're bringing back Coach Casey because they like him. They like what he brings. They know he has a proven track record of having successful teams that may not exactly have superstar talent on their roster, but still are damn good basketball teams, and with the right pieces around them. So knowing that, and obviously the history that Stefanski has with Casey, it doesn't surprise me that they're going to keep Casey here as long as possible. And if they do well enough, and if they have the right core pieces around them, then who knows, in a couple of years he'll get another extension. That's always something to look out for.
Yep, true. We'll see what the future holds for those Pistons. So transitioning to the Tigers, who are leading 4-2 heading in the ninth inning. Gregory Soto, their closer right now, pours one in there for strike one, 3-1 the count against Jorge Soler. Top 9, Tigers lead the Royals 4-2 in the middle game. Last night in the series opener, the Tigers blew a 7-0 lead, gave up 3 runs by Joe Jimenez in the 8th, and then 4 by Jose Cisnero in the top of the 9th. Cisnero blew the save before Soto, the aforementioned Soto, came on. I thought not that I care too much, but I thought AJ Hinch should have pulled Cisnero and put in Soto for a save opportunity, but I may not be sure about that. But Soto, it depends on the type of situation that Soto might be either be more comfortable in, or less comfortable, or like the urgency that AJ Hinch was either lacking in terms of his closer. Soto it is the closer. Now it's Soler's on first, probably with a walk. Benintendi on now, or at the dish now. 0 for 2. He just fouled one off. Last night, Matthew Boyd had a 7-0 lead. It was blown by Jimenez and Cisnero. Kind of like putting in the wrong relievers being one thing, but leaving Cisnero in the game in the 9th inning for too long. But Robbie Grossman, the RBI single to walk it off, 8-7 for the Tigers last night. They lead 4-2. Casey Mize in line for a win currently as of right now, but there's nobody out. Soler on first, probably with a walk, like I mentioned before. The 1-1 driven to right right to Nomar Mazaro, makes the catch. 1 out. 9 pitches thrown by Soto. Soler stays on first. But before we get to Jordan Zimmerman, Ed, I want your analogy on what you've experienced the past week with the Tigers. 11-24 is their worst in Major League Baseball.
It is, but there are, they were at least able to win their past couple of games. They did have at least offensive production. We're seeing a better resurgence in their offense now with the past 3 games.
Yeah.
7 runs against the Twins, 8 runs well, they got 7 wins against Minnesota in their 7-3 victory too. Right. And then
that was last week.
And then the 8-7 victory the other night, last night rather, and now this. They got 4 runs, and now they got themselves in line for the win, provided that the bullpen doesn't F it up. But also another element here, much better outing from Casey Mize. True quality start. Went 6 innings, only gave up 3 hits, 2 runs, had 4 strikeouts compared to 2 walks, bringing down that ERA below 5, still above 4, but it's getting low.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, the last, the last 3 games or so, or the last week, his ERA was at a 1.5. Compared that to what he did, against Chicago?
Again, the White Sox.
Yeah. 3 runs, but still was productive enough to where it could have had the team in line for a victory. Way better than what we've seen him do in his outings against Kansas City and Oakland, where he gave up at least 5 runs in both of those outings. So much better this time around. He had don't forget the Red Sox also. He had 6 innings, another strong quality start when he faced Boston last week. He had 3 strikeouts, only gave up 1 run in that one as well. I want him to keep the walks down at least a little bit, but again, as long as he keeps that ERA down, as he keeps getting those strikeouts, producing quality starts, that has the team in a position to win as much as they can, then you're going to see that development of what he brings to the table. I think it's a matter of having patience with the young man. But as regards for the team in general, you're seeing more from their offense. They're getting key runs when they need it, even though some of the averages may not say it, but they're getting the hits when they need it. Miguel Cabrera even got a couple of hits when they faced Boston, even though he's been absolutely terrible all year. And which reminds me, the Angels DFA'd, waived essentially. They cut Albert Pujols. They designated him for assignment this past week, so now more than likely his career is over, which is saying something. So that gave me something to potentially look at in regards to what the Tigers might want to do with Miguel Cabrera. But then again, I remembered, oh yeah, that's right, Chris Ilitch is the owner. I doubt he want to pay any type of buyout or whether the case or dead money to DFA or cut Cabrera now. Maybe he'll do something when he's in the last year of his deal, the way the Angels did it with Pujols. But yeah, with cheapskate Chris at the helm, there's no way they're going to do that, at least right now.
Right. The parking lot king, again, does not care about this Tigers team or its fans. He's just acting out. He's just always acting out his PR stuff on the television airwaves, probably on opening day every single year. So Jordan Zimmerman announced his retirement. He came into Detroit in 2016, had a good first half, but then since his injury, he really tailed off since then through this point. The last year of his contract was last year, and then he decided to hang it up. So Jordan Zimmerman is no longer on this Tigers team.
Well, he was with the Milwaukee Brewers for a little bit this year. And then he decided, I don't have it anymore. I'm done. So, which again, I think I've been saying for a while, he was washed, and he had been washed for a good number of years. Didn't surprise me. Then made this announcement now because you saw his performance. You saw it on the field whenever he was with the Tigers. He was an absolute disaster of a signing. They thought they were getting a guy who was in his peak with Washington instead of the guy who was really, frankly, at the end of his rope. But props to him for still a long and successful career. I wish him nothing but the best.
Yep. Tigers just beat the Royals 4-2. Casey Mize has got to pick up the win. That's got to be his second win of the year. 2-3. Danny Duffy takes the loss. Tigers beat the Royals 4-2. Mize, like I mentioned before, 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 3 hits, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. Miguel Cabrera, 2 RBIs tonight.
Mm-hmm. Good on him. Good on Miggy. He needed a game like this to help with his confidence. Also worth noting, Michael Fulmer did an inning out of the bullpen. He pitched 1 inning, had a strikeout. He was the setup man for Soto. Maybe that could be something to where eventually you shift or transition him to the bullpen instead of him being a starter in your rotation. That could be a possibility with how.
Yes, there too.
Yeah.
So Michael Fulmer could be the setup guy for Gregory Soto, who is throwing 99 miles an hour for almost every fastball that he's thrown through as of tonight.
You just gotta be careful with his control, because I remember how he almost blew the save on opening day, and I think he had a guy get on base and get to third base. So he just needs to have the base pass as clear as possible whenever he's getting ready to do his thing and shut it down.
Yeah, good point. You got to be careful. Sometimes you got to mix things up with your other pitches, with your arsenal on the mound. The velocity,
because eventually they're gonna read. They're gonna catch on to that fastball, and then they'll start pinpointing it, and they'll smack it around.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes you got to shake things up just to fool the hitters. That's part of the game.
Or the art of pitching, as Jim Price would say.
Yep. Think some people are starting to get that message. The fans that listen to the Tigers on the radio already get that message too. But that's all we've covered. Any closing statement, Ed, before we close up shop here?
Well, closing statement again, I think I would say is the Pistons and the Red Wings seem to be on a similar pathways to where they want to know, they have a feeling, an inkling of what they want their future long term will be, but they still want to have some short term goals keyed up first. So if you hear something in the next couple of days of Jeff Blashill getting an extension to correlate with Dwayne Casey getting his extension today, it would not be a surprise to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and also one last counterpoint to reiterate what I was talking about earlier in regards to Michigan. More accountability has to be taken, especially in this day. Now, if they want to say, oh, we didn't do it back then because nobody else was, still, that's a shame on that era, shame on those people and everyone else in that whole orbit. This is a new era, new day, a new way of accountability of people now speaking up, and rightfully so, of wrongs and injustices being done to them. So again, be more culpable, be more accountable, and take flat out responsibility.
Yeah. My closing statement in regards to Blashill and Casey, if both teams extend both their respective head coaches, you got to wonder, is it going to work in the near future? Because one day in the near future, the Red Wings and Pistons need to start winning games again. Start being playoff contenders again. Start being cup contenders. Start being championship contenders again. Are Blashill and Casey going to be the solution? I doubt it. Their coaching staff, I doubt it as well. Even I never know myself. But I strongly doubt that it's going to be the solution for both the Red Wings and Pistons. That's my closing statement. So before we go, I want to remind everyone to download the Sports Mobile app Viget, where great fans cover. Enter the referral code STABLES with a capital S and the rest being lowercase with a letter B as in billionaire, for Stables Media when you sign up. Available on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Download the Vigit app and sign up with the referral code STABLES with a capital S for 1,000 free VIG coins. Vigit is where great fans cover. Ed, excellent job as always. That concludes another fine episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media. We'll be back next week. For Ed Smith, on behalf of Frank Ragnow, this is Taylor Phillips signing off. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DT2Phillips with 2 L's, and follow Ed Smith on Twitter and Instagram at EdSmith313. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there. TTFN, ta-ta for now, power to the people. Hit 'em while high, we rest our case. Stay safe.